Please join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and Happy New Year, everyone. Roll call, please.
Miss Doherty.
Here.
Miss Larraba.
Here.
Mr. Leahy.
Here.
Mr. Leary.
Here.
Miss Martin. Mayor Milanazzo.
Here.
Mr. Conway.
Here.
7 present.
Thank you. We don't have any items on the special order of business. Moving on to the minutes. Motion by Ms. Martin, second by Ms. Larraba, to accept the minutes as presented. Any comments, questions, clarifications? Hearing none, all those in favor of the minutes signify by saying aye. Opposed to the vote. I want to thank the secretary.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Under permission to enter, Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. Home on transportation for $14,287 to provide round-trip transportation for one special education student from Bay Cove Academy in Brookline, Mass. To the Lawrence Group Home in Arlington, Mass. Funding provided by the Lowell School Department, Special Education Department, Transportation Budget. Assistant Medical Transportation Specialist for the amount of $21,960 to provide round-trip transportation for homeless students from the temporary low residence to the various schools in Lawrence, Mass. Funding provided by the Lowell School Department, Transportation Budget. Linda Lee for the amount of $45,655.44.
Excuse me, Madam Superintendent.
Yes.
That's from the last meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Here's the list right here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Education, Inc. for the amount of $90,000 to provide academic support and tutoring services to special education students who are hospitalized. Funding provided by the Special Education Hospital Tutoring Account. Lawrence Incorporated, Jermaine, $32,149 to provide for the out-of-district tuition costs for one student enrolled in receiving services as outlined in the Special Education IEP. Funding provided by the School Department Special Education Tuition Account. Community Training and Assistance Center Incorporated for the amount of $35,000 to provide administrators and teachers professional development on key concepts related to the Merkland school redesign process. Funding provided by the School Improvement Bridge Grant. That's all, Your Honor. Sorry
Thank
for the
you.
confusion.
Any questions? Move approval by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Conway. Any discussion? Roll call.
Miss Doherty.
Yes.
Miss Larraba.
Yes.
Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Miss Martin.
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Yes.
Mr. Conway.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Thank you. Under memorials, under committee as a whole, I'd like us to have a moment of silence in darkened chambers for the following 3 individuals. Karina Yore, former Lowell Public School student. Rita Santry, mother of Christine Santry, Sullivan school teacher. And Rita M. Doobie Cody, mother-in-law of Nancy Cody, business office clerk. If we could all rise in a moment of silence in darkened chambers. Thank you. May they rest in peace. I don't know if this would be an appropriate time, but just if I could have a suspension of the rules, just to talk, motion by Mr. Leary, second by Mr. Leahy, to suspend the rules to talk about that tragic shooting over on Grand Street on New Year's Eve, and just to bring the committee up to date from the standpoint of what happened last night at the City Council meeting, and also to mention that we did get a notice that the Memorial Awake and Monk prayer service for Karina Yore is Friday on January 7th at 2:30 at the Dolan Funeral Home. So those of us that are available to be there, if you would like to attend, it is Friday at 2:30. Also, then on January 8th, there's also a service at at the temple over on 21 Quigley Avenue in North Chelmsford. But just to talk a little bit about the tragic event on New Year's Eve, we did suspend the rules last night at City Council to talk about it, and we did schedule a public safety subcommittee meeting for Tuesday night, I believe at 5 o'clock, to which the superintendent has been invited, along with Superintendent LaValle and a representative from Jerry Leone's office, and obviously anyone from the school committee, if you'd like to come in and attend and just listen to the steps that we as a community would like to take, working as a coalition to try to deal with this issue that we find ourselves faced with now. It was a tragic event, and our hearts go out to the family of Karina Yore and the others that were injured during what happened that night. But I appreciate you giving me an opportunity under suspension just to bring the committee, because obviously the school committee and the school administration will continue to play an important role as we discuss issues of safety, especially in our schools going forward. So if you're available, and I don't know, Dr. Scott, if you wanted to add anything, Dr. Scott, if you would.
Thank you, Your Honor. I, too, am part of the school department, want to express our condolences to the individuals and families who've been affected by this tragedy, and just to share with our school community at large different steps that have been taken this week to outreach to our community. We have and continue to work closely with the Lowell Police Department, and reports from Ken LaValle, again, as recently as today, is that outreach from not only the police department but from our staff, that students continue to be monitored in our various schools across the system, and that at this time people are calm, people are going on with their work and have been offered counseling if in fact students and their families needed services are being provided. On Monday morning, our headmaster, Ed Rosemaric, met with staff to raise safety issues and to talk about the incident with staff. At the high school, crisis intervention team was put together, and a grief counseling center was set up at the high school. Monday morning, as the committee knows, I met with Ken LaValle, Jerry Leone, the DA, as well as Bernie Lynch and others to discuss the matter, to ensure that every step was taken to support all those involved in this tragic incident. A Connect Ed message has been sent out today from Ed Rosemaric to our high school community. Again, just reviewing steps that have been taken and reaching out to our community and making sure that people know to contact us if they have any concerns, questions, and also that clinical support is available to our families. And again, we continue to work collaboratively with the police department. Ken LaValle would have joined us tonight to speak to all of you, but he had a previous engagement, but wanted me to share with you that at this time we do think things are safe, under control, and that all services are being provided. I also think it would be appropriate that at one point in time in this child's academic career that we just acknowledge Karina Orr, who went to the LeBlanc School. She was registered at the Middlesex Community College, but Jane Campbell, the LeBlanc School coordinator, wrote today and just wanted, if it was possible, to briefly acknowledge the staff's sadness around the death of this particular student. And she writes, I knew Karina well. She attended the LeBlanc School for a period of time. People speak very highly of her. She's compassionate and caring and engaging. And we will all miss her contagious smile. Our condolences to her and her family. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Mr. Leahy?
Thank you, and I appreciate the update and communication and everything that you're doing. I just had a couple of comments myself that, it was a tragic event, obviously. I'm glad to hear tonight through the superintendent that a Connect Ed message has gone out from the high school. My only suggestion, I would just kind of hope that maybe in the future, if not that anything like this would happen again, but I would have liked to have seen us just act a little faster from the high school maybe, just so that we, I know there was a lot to do. I just wanted to make sure that we sent a strong message and came out Monday morning with just to really show the community, that we are taking some action at the high school. I know that we're doing it. I'm having a hard time relating this, but when I read the paper yesterday, in Tuesday's paper, there was a headline that said Lowell High braces for aftershocks, which was totally irresponsible of the paper to put a headline like that in the paper, because when you read the article, it really doesn't say that, we're expecting a lot of trouble at the high school. We're preparing to help out and outreach for the students. But you read that headline and you get a total, it's not what the article is about, and it's not what would happen at the Lowell High School. So I was disappointed when I read that headline, but I think people just really wanted to hear from us Monday, Tuesday at the latest. I'm glad we finally got it out today, but we really need to, get right on this. And I mean, we do have Mr. Conway with us on the committee. He's been at the high school for a number of years. I would hope that we would use his expertise in dealing with situations like this. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that we're on it. I just want to make sure that, Superintendent, you would know that if you would need to come to us as a committee, even if you didn't need approval, but, any extra people down there for the week, security, counselors, anything just to, make sure. And people just wanted to know that, we are in charge at the high school, and we certainly are, and we take our students' safety concerns very seriously. And so I'm glad that we're all working together as a community on this. I want people to know through our actions that, your children are safe at Lowell High School. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leahy. Mr. Conway, then Ms. Larrabee and Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, again, I want to thank the superintendent and her staff for the update of this terrible situation. I did get down to the high school that Monday, and I did take a tour with Dr. Jack, and what I saw was the school in an orderly fashion, and education was going on, and the corridors were empty, and it seems as though people were doing what they're supposed to do, and I think that was great. And also, we did take a walk by the area, the little theater where the grief counselors were there, and they were servicing some of the students, and they were doing an excellent job, and those people were very competent. They certainly know what they're doing in that area. In a situation like this, I think people would certainly recognize that sometimes the problems not necessarily arise that day or the next day, but it could be a week or a month or longer down the road. And I'm just wondering, I would assume that there were a lot of schools, not just the high school, but a number of different schools that were involved with this situation where some of these young men and women went to this school. So I wonder if I could ask the superintendent through you, are there other schools that we have the grief counselors, and if so, what is the time frame on that? How long will we have them, and do we have them, is there enough of time, and do we have enough of them, or do we have to get them from other sources in order to handle the situation? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, there are other students who have been impacted by this incident at other schools throughout our system. And at the present time, we do have counselors in place. Counselors were notified on Sunday, and in place and ready to go Monday morning. And we continue to have people in place, as you mentioned, Mr. Conway, the fact, and actually the police chief and I talked about this today, although it's relatively, and has been relatively quiet and calm, there is sometimes an after effect where, you know, the impact of such a tragedy affects families, students, and so, you know, to be clear, we do understand and appreciate your point with regards to being ever vigilant and observant to make sure. And to be fair, sometimes students and even adults don't even necessarily realize the ramifications and realize the stress and shock of such a tragedy. So we are cognizant of the point, and we'll continue to reach out to those families. Many agencies besides the police department, but Children Welfare Services, homeless services, many services have been involved.
I think just very quickly, what Mr. Leahy said, well, you know, he hit it right on the head when he mentioned the fact that, you know, the students and staff need to feel that they're safe. Parents obviously need to know that too, and there is, you know, there certainly has to be that atmosphere that there is a control there, and I think that's, sometimes it's visual too, that certainly helps things out. So again, I would imagine that this is going to be an ongoing process here, and we're always sitting down to try to refine it to make sure that, once again, you know, what parents expect, number one, as I've said often, is that when they send their children off to school, number one, they want to make sure they're safe. Mm-hmm. So I thank the administration and for putting these situations in place here.
Mm-hmm.
Safety situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Larraba?
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on the conversation about the students feeling safe in their school. My understanding is that once students were identified and they were informed Sunday night and the counselors were in place on Monday, that's exactly what happened. That the principals and the headmaster were taking the time to make sure that the students at each of these schools understood not only that these services were there available for them, but that they were in an atmosphere, an environment that was safe, and said to them that if you have any concerns, we will address them. I really just wanted to clarify that to Mr. Leahy's point, that we may have only received the call this evening, but that's the call to the general public at large. The students, who, in my opinion, were the more important things, were being focused on first, and they were getting that reassurance, you know, Monday morning and Tuesday and Wednesday. The message that was sent out by Mr. Rosemaric, I did actually receive it before I headed out to the meetings. I thought was very well done. He was factual about it. He was good to the point, and reassured us that yes, business is going on as usual at the high school. They have made sure that they've had extra conversations about security, but the security in place has reported that they do not have any incidents above and beyond normal. I mean, anytime you have that many kids, you're going to have some kind of incidents, but in terms of reaction to this. And so I really, I want to thank them for the fact that they did do the work that they did right off the bat, and that we did have the counselors in place. And it sounds like we are going to continue to monitor that situation. And I do want to thank Assistant Superintendent Murphy, because she was very timely over the weekend in sending an email out to us and letting us know what had happened and what steps were being taken as the superintendent was away. And then when the superintendent returned, also followed up with her conversations with Chief LaValle and Mr. Rosemaric. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, and just two quick comments. As a parent with two children at Lowell High School, I can tell you absolutely my children feel safe at the high school. I feel safe with them being at the high school. And I'm not going to repeat what my colleague on the left said, but I think that the high school has been, you know, in terms of working with the students there. The second point, and actually it would open up to a comment from the superintendent, we have scheduled a subcommittee meeting for next Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And I think the primary item on that agenda is going to be safety issues. This meeting was already scheduled prior to this incident, and it is my understanding that we have all our meetings are public anyway, but we have specifically invited security staff and our police officers at the high school to feel free to come and talk with us about safety and security issues at the high school. And I wonder if the superintendent can update us on that. But I know we are meeting next Wednesday at 6 o'clock at the Rogers School. It's an open meeting. The public is welcome to attend. And I don't know if the superintendent has any specifics about, attendance in terms of the police officers or security staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Scott?
Thank you. Thank you to Mr. Conway for getting the meeting set up for us. It's very timely. And yes, we have requested various security, and Mr. Conway also invited administration. Jack Dolan, who's really worked with us as one of the liaisons from the police department for the last 5 years, has also said that he will be in attendance to answer any questions that the committee has or our community has. So we do encourage people to come out to hear whatever issues people want to discuss. We want to work with people and make sure that the lines of communication are open and that people know that our high school is safe.
Thank you. Anything else on this topic? I appreciate suspending the rules so that we could speak about it, and we'll get together next week at our Public Safety Subcommittee on Tuesday, and then the one on Wednesday as well to continue the discussion. So again, it's very important that we put the message forward to our parents and guardians and students that the Lowell Public Schools are indeed safe. So thank you. Getting back to the regular agenda, I guess we'll proceed right to the motions. The first motion by Mr. Leary requests the superintendent, central administration, and the Lowell City Solicitor review the current Lowell Public School desegregation policy, current school zones, and transportation plan in order to determine if there are any potential cost savings and improvements of student services which would be achieved by making changes to all or some of the existing aforementioned policies for the upcoming 2011-2012 school year. The review would include any negative impacts made as a result of altering one or all of the existing policies. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Leahy. Mr. Leary.
Thank you, Mayor. This is something I've been touching base with the city solicitor, the superintendent, and a variety of different people at central office since the summer of this year. It's complicated. I don't know. I have an idea how the review would come out, but I think the legal aspect of it is very challenging. I don't know how the review will finally come in as far as a recommendation, but in terms of getting ready for the budget year, I think this is something we need to look at as opposed to just cutting items. I think the school committee has shown great initiative in terms of looking at reorganization and doing things in a way that's meaningful to our student population as well as our staff. Again, I don't know the final result of what this would be, but I do know if school times are changed or any type of impact is changed, we need to do that quicker as opposed to during the actual budget time frame. It's everybody have spoken to, from the transportation director, John Dakota, to the city solicitor, thinks it's a very timely thing to look at. Where the results lead and where I will even stand after the recommendations come in, I really don't know. But again, in the interest of doing things in an intelligent, thoughtful, and creative manner, I think this is another good item for the school committee to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Mr. Conway, then Ms. Larraba, and then Mr. Leahy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, and I applaud my colleagues for coming up, and Mr. Leary coming up with this idea, because I think that what we need to do is take a look at every single idea and thought that might save some money, whether we agree with it or not, and that's something that, obviously we'll be debating. And again, I think that we have mentioned this numerous times on the floor that it's going to be a very challenging economic time going forward, and it's extremely important that we take a look at everything. The only thing I would suggest here with this, because I think what Mr. Leary says, it's a complicated situation, and needless to say, we've got the legal team involved too. I think that this situation went back to, I believe it was 1988, where we went into the voluntary desegregation plan. And the two people, actually three people, that were at the forefront that put this whole package together so that it didn't become a mandatory situation, was former Superintendent George Sapasaris, and also former Mayor Richard Howe, Sr., and also the city solicitor, I believe at that time was Tom Sweeney. And they put this whole package together to make sure that everything was right for the school system and that it was not taken over by the federal government. So I would make a suggestion that when the team that has been just mentioned here in the motion sits down, that it might be a good idea to touch bases with those three individuals, because they will have that institutional history of exactly what took place and perhaps help maybe give us some ideas going forward if there's going to be any pitfalls and any kind of hurdles that we might have to take a look at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conway. Ms. Larraba?
Thank you. I actually just wanted to, and I don't know if Mr. Leary would have the answer to this or not. Somewhere in my mind, I thought there had been conversations about our deseg order and trying to get that vacated or canceled so that we wouldn't be under that same kind of strains and still make sure that we were being equitable. Am I imagining that? Where are we with that?
Mr. Leary?
Just I started the conversation, maybe even later in the summer, but to give kind of an epitome to it, Mr. Conway pointed out Attorney Tom Sweeney. I had a long when I spoke with the city solicitor, she actually involved Tom Sweeney. We had like an hour and a half, almost a 2-hour conversation regarding the history of the deseg order, how they came about doing it, and Attorney Sweeney was our attorney of record at that time. And the city solicitor said if a motion did come forward, Tom Sweeney, from the legal department point of view, would be the one, the focal point, and talking with the former Mayor Dick Howe as well as the former Superintendent Sapasaris would be part of their process of reviewing. As far as vacating an order or not vacating order, I think that's exactly what they would be looking at. That's just one piece. It's a huge piece to look at. The second piece is the school zones, and when you look at the zones, some of the areas of the communities, for example, Pawtucketville, the number of students versus the building size out there's more students than building size. And that's the other component. And then just the transportation piece. So it's a huge process to look at. It involves multiple different departments to do. It is complicated, but if we're going to cut, whatever, $5 million, $10 million, we at least have to go through the due diligence. I don't even know if they make a recommendation to vacate an order, I would support it or not. There's just so many moving pieces that need to come together. But I think before we start laying off human beings again, this is something we have to address and either rule it in, rule it out, or rule bits and pieces of it in. And it is complicated. The folks that I have spoken with, from the city solicitor, Mr. Sweeney, to the transportation director, to the assistant superintendent Amorphy, to the superintendent, think it's meaningful to take a look at. It may not result in anything, because, for one example, the section of Pawtucketville having more students than building occupancy, but at least something we address before we say to a teacher or to whoever, we're going to cut your job. We looked at all extremes and tried to be creative with it. And I think the committee in the past has been very creative with doing things in a thoughtful way, as opposed to just saying, hey, let's just lop off 5%. We've tried doing things innovative. It hasn't made it any less painful, but at least we can be thoughtful and look people in the eye and say, hey, we did the best we could. Thanks.
Thank you. You all set, Ms. Larraba? Okay. Mr. Leahy?
Thank you. I just didn't know if anybody knew, was there a timeline on the deseg order? Until
I don't
loans
believe
are paid
so.
off,
Yeah.
or no?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
We'll double check that, and I'm sure Dr. Scott will get us that information.
Just to answer that, that's part of the reason why, because a lot of folks on the committee, I don't think anybody was here other than Mr. Conway working for the school department, really were involved with the deseg order. And I know people have a knowledge or historical data of thought process, what it means, but what does it really mean legally? And I think that even if we don't change it, at least now we'll have an updated review as to why we're in it, what it means, what we can change, what we can't change, and what steps are available. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conway?
Again, I think it's a good idea to take a look at, and I'm glad to hear Mr. Leary mention that Tom Sweeney, which, I'm glad he was on board and you had quite a conversation with him, because he obviously has done a great job as a city solicitor for the city for numerous years. And again, I'm not surprised that he immediately wanted to bring those two involved with it. Also, the other, just a point of clarification for my own thought process here, is that didn't we back maybe 4 or 5 years ago, did we do the school zones? Did we change those around with Carla Brooks Bear? I don't know if anybody could help me out with that. Because I would assume it's
Murphy.
okay, because I would assume it's a rather
Yes.
complicated, as Mr. Leary said, a very complicated process, and I'm wondering I think we did it a few years ago.
Yeah, the chair will recognize Assistant Superintendent Murphy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The last revision to the voluntary compliance plan was in 2003, when we actually rezoned some of the schools and added a third zone. So that was the last time that there was a thorough look and a redesign of our zones, if you will, was 2003.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. Next motion by Mr. Leary, requests the school administration allow employees who were laid off due to Lowell school budget cuts and that were in good employment standing prior to that layoff be allowed to attend study training programs without financial stipends provided to current employees. Second? Second by Mr. Leahy. Mr. Leary.
Just quickly, and I apologize for the motion, the reason why I brought it forward, because there's certain folks who are trying to get like an ELA certification, and we have self-study groups that are going on in the department, and some of our folks who have been laid off would like to take that ELA certification, for example. It's apparently a very challenging test to take, and getting into these study groups where we actually are paying our current employees a stipend to go to them. If we can make it available for our folks we laid off to come in and be part of the study group. We can't pay them stipends, obviously, per the contract, but we can make that a time if they're available to come in to be part of the process. And the ELA is the one that comes to mind. I did put that in the motion, but there's other types of programs similar to it, and people who, for no fault of their own, we just laid off in the last budget cycle, and they were in good standing. Why can't we let them join into those study groups? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Larrabee?
I guess the only question that comes to mind is, are we charged any kind of fee for, I'm assuming that this study group is facilitated by somebody, or am I incorrect that?
Madam Superintendent?
We have many different study groups, so I'd have to have specific details to be able to answer your question fully. But if I understand the intent of the motion, Mr. Larry, it's to, if we are running professional development opportunities in the district, that people who have been laid off and we have, and it's no additional cost to the system, it seems like a pretty goodwill gesture. Is that the intent, Mr. Larry? Thank you.
I just wanted to clarify that it would be no additional cost to us. I understand, I think it is an awesome opportunity, but my concern was going to be if there was additional cost to us. So if there is no additional cost, that.
We could amend it that's my intent. If you want to, if we can amend it to make sure there's no additional cost to the district, I think that's important. Thank you.
Then motion to amend by Ms. Larrabee, second by Ms. Doherty, that there's no additional cost to the district. Mr. Conway, before we vote, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just very quickly, do we have a mechanism in place that we can notify all these people of what type of programs or courses or enrichment classes that we might have? Is that?
Madam Superintendent?
We have all the information with regards to what courses and what offerings we have, and there may be some issue or difficulty with regards to our database and the current address of employees that we've let go. So they would have to contact us, or we could do a mailing out, but it would be with the last address that we have on record.
Right. That's understandable. I'm just wondering if, they might not know that something is coming up, so that's the best you can do. Whatever the last address is, you send it to. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Larrabee, before we...
Is that scheduled on a website at some point that teachers could check?
Madam Superintendent?
All of our course offerings presently aren't, so we have professional development by school. So some of the courses, PD offerings that Mr. Leary's talking about may be school-based, so that wouldn't necessarily be a district-run PD offering. However, we do have some courses that we run district-wide. But just to follow up on, if it's all right, Mayor, Mr. Conway's point with regards to how would we contact people, there would be a cost associated then with mailings, just to bring that to people's attention if that was the expectation. I just don't want this to, I think it's one thing for us to post it on the website, but, and to put it out there. But again, I don't know if the onus should be on the school department to have mailings out to employees that we have had to let go because of financial strain and take additional resources, both time on behalf of staff to do the mailing and the cost of postage. And I don't mean to sound in any way mean about it. It's just another thing for us to consider.
Thank you. Ms. Larraba?
I think if we can put something up on the website, and there certainly is a word of mouth
Sure.
that works very well amongst the teachers, and I think they would be made aware very quickly, those that are interested in it, that would follow up on it. And I think at that point, we would save ourselves the cost of trying to send out a mailing.
Thank you. Anything else on the motion as amended? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next motion by Mr. Leary, request the superintendent look into the feasibility of the Lowell High School Colleen Cregan TV studio producing technology-type teacher training videos. Seconded by Mr. Conway.
Thank you. This is not actually my idea. This was an idea by the great John McDonough, who was pointing out to me that his wife, who was a teacher at one of our schools, a fantastic teacher, was a computer teacher and had a lot of knowledge and was working with teachers trying to develop programs for X2 or utilization of X2. And I thought it was a great idea because since we don't have computer teachers anymore, that if we could put some type of courses online that our teachers need for professional development. For example, how to use X2, how to implement your grades, using a YouTube video or other type of technology. I put a pretty generic sentence so you can be whatever's the most effective and least costly that Jack and those guys at the Colleen Cregan TV studio could utilize. You could even run further with it and help put on prevention issues. For example, for the issue the tragic issue in the Lower Highlands over the New Year weekend, putting out gang prevention issues. I know that Officer Timmy Golden puts on a training presentation for bullying. You could put different types of videos on that as well for parents to look at. You can really, the sky's the limit with the technology that we have if we can utilize it, starting with giving teachers a training that we're unable to provide on a timely fashion. For example, how to use X2, and leading right up to filming different types of training programs for our students and for the public at large. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to say I love this motion. I've felt now for quite some time that we underuse the Cregan TV studio. We don't have enough of our students involved in it. The staffing has been decimated over the years. And so I'm going to support this motion, but I think we really need to look at what our investment is going to be in that studio and the technology that we already have, and how we can grow and expand the program and the number of students who are involved. And I think that's a much larger discussion, and it's clearly, I'm just waiting to, give the new headmaster time to deal with all the other things that are on his plate. But I definitely think this is a good way to go. And we have already used Channel 22, as you know. We used it when we rolled out our new math program several years ago. We've used it even more recently. The superintendent has used it for several different areas. So I support the motion, but I think it's important to put out there that we need to really look at how to do more with what we've got over there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leary?
And I think my colleague, Committeewoman Doherty's response, I'm also thinking not only Channel 22, but YouTube videos or other types of technology you can have right on the website. So you can go to training, how to use X2, and other types of areas besides just using channel 22, because if you're using 22, you got to get it at a specific hour. If you have training videos like YouTube or other types of technology, you can go to it anytime you have the opportunity. And you can go wild with it. I mean, literally covering a variety of topics. You can segregate just to teachers, just to students, just to parents, etc. So the bottom line is be creative with it. Utilize the technology that we already have. Utilize it, as Ms. Doherty said, to the fullest. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, motion to approve. I believe we already have a motion that's been seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. Last motion by Mr. Leahy. Request the superintendent give the school committee an update on snow removal around the district. Second by Ms. Martin. Mr. Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted, if we could get an update from Brian Curley, I guess, about the snow plowing. We did have the one major storm, and we had a week off of school. And basically, I speak about this every year, and it's a safety concern. And I just think that it has to come from the top down, because what I observe, especially around the Riley and the Sullivan schools, is just that we seem to be pushing the snow onto the corners, and that's where the kids are crossing. And some of the spots where the crossing guards are, they're not properly plowed. So, we just have to have better communication between our staff and the city staff. And, it's not to say that the guys out there doing the plowing and the shoveling aren't doing a good job. It's probably that we're not doing a good job conveying to them what we want. And, I guess we were actually lucky that we didn't have school because, dangerous situations when you have a snowbank that's 5 feet high in a corner and the kids are crossing there, or the crossing guards aren't safe. And I'd just like to see a better job of us cleaning our schools up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leahy. Anyone else on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Moving on to subcommittee reports. The first one is the Curriculum Subcommittee. Report and approval of the minutes of Monday, January 3rd. Chair recognizes Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. The Curriculum and Instruction Subcommittee did meet on January 3rd. Present from the subcommittee were myself and Ms. Doherty. Also from the school committee attending was Ms. Laraba. From central office, we had the superintendent, Dr. Scott, also Jim Neary, who's our coordinator for school improvement. And then we had representatives from, specifically from the Merkland School, which is our level 4 turnaround school. They included the principal, Jason DiCarlo, his assistant principal, Kevin Andriolo, and their literacy specialist, Rebecca Hyde, and we also had Mr. George as president of the UTL. The turnaround plan is obviously a very ambitious and I think very challenging process that, we are among several communities across the Commonwealth that are going through this. It really is, I think, an opportunity where we've had a school that's been specifically designated at this level of performance, recognized that it needs additional support. And I think that the team that's been brought together to try and chart a course back towards success for these students has done extremely good work, and I think has come up with some great ideas. Just to kind of briefly go through where we are in the process right now, an original plan had been submitted to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. What we're really discussing at this most recent subcommittee was the response that ESE had sent to us and how the district has responded now back to them. There's a lot of back and forth with this process. Really what the key elements are, I think, is that there have been some shifts made in the schedule for the day, including a 10-minute window in the morning where students are going to be allowed to come into the school 10 minutes early. There's been some changes in terms of recess duty, which will release teachers for some additional professional development, common planning time activities. And then there's been a true increase of 15 minutes to the day, which is specifically part of this turnaround endeavor. We did have significant conversations regarding a partnership with Community Teamwork, Inc. Just in terms of full disclosure, I do work for Community Teamwork, Inc. I do not work with this aspect of the agency, but I do work there. And some conversations regarding an additional preschool classroom, which will be part of this turnaround, working with Community Teamwork and specifically with their Head Start programming, which is in my own, I'm sure, wildly biased opinion, an extraordinary program for students who come in with, whether it's language deficits or from challenging economic circumstances. Head Start really is a program that has proven itself over decades to dramatically improve the performance over a lifetime of education by catching students at this young age and really surrounding them not just with academic supports, but I think perhaps even more importantly with social and family supports that truly can allow them to be successful. So that was my commercial for Head Start. I will say that after the meeting, just as we kind of move forward, I do want us to be aware that we had, I think, discussed a little bit about the need to develop some policies around this. I would even more strongly recommend that we start that process. I know the superintendent was amenable to that. I think we're going to need to be particularly careful in the way we craft these policies in terms of we have certain requirements that we need to meet, certain eligibility standards for these students to be able to be part of this program. And I think we're going to have to be particularly cognizant of that in terms of selecting a subset of students and not giving access to all of our students. That's going to be the challenge. So I just communicate that to the superintendent here, so it's kind of part of the record, and we can take that into consideration as we move forward. You know, a lot of the work around the turnaround really does focus, and most particularly in the first couple years, with work with teachers, taking teachers and giving them additional supports, some aggressive professional development opportunities, working, I think, towards really raising the bar and raising the expectations for the students that attend the Merkland, and I think for our teaching staff as well. We've had ongoing conversations, I know, regarding the professional development work. It is specifically being used at the Merkland with Teach for Teachers consultants. We discussed it, I think, in very passionate and committed ways last night, as we tend to over and over again. And I think that the turnaround team and particularly the staff at the Merkland are very committed, and I respect that and appreciate it. I will say as we move forward that, and I said it at the time as well, that I will not be supporting that aspect of the plan. And I think it's important to note also that it will be important before this is submitted to recognize that an actual contract will come before this committee for next year when we go through this process. And as I said last night, I'd be voting against that as well. So just so we can all be aware of that situation. I think that as we look at what the turnaround means and what it's really supposed to do for the school, we discussed some of the I think truly dramatic changes that they're talking about, and that I am extremely pleased by. But I do think that I certainly have some concerns when we need to be able to compare what we're offering back to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in terms of one of the specific things, and it's just because it's been something that's been discussed publicly from our state government and from a couple different venues, the real interest in extending the school day as one of the priorities. And that's just, some of it may be sound bites, and some of it may just be, the particular focus that individuals at the state administration hold. But I have concerns as we return this document to ESC for consideration, that may be the thing that they don't feel we've gone far enough with. It's difficult to say when we don't have anything to compare ourselves to. You know, the superintendent I know is working to try and find us those comparisons with some of the other districts who are in the exact same circumstance. We don't have a full slate to kind of make those comparisons to see if we're in a reasonable range or if we do need to stretch further. I think it's difficult knowing that the deadline for this is the 13th, as I understand it. So that's going to be a challenge to make any kind of dramatic changes at this point. So those are the concerns that I have as we submit this. I think we should be prepared for additional, there could be additional pushback and some additional changes. I do have great respect for the educators who joined us last night. Their commitment and their tenacity is impressive, and I think that their vision for the school they're trying to build is one that will do their students proud, and that is no small feat. I know we went back and forth on this last night, so the superintendent may be able to clarify this for me. So my understanding is that what we reviewed last night is a work in progress. It's being finalized for the 13th, then to be sent in. Is that accurate?
And what we reviewed was when we sent, when we sent in the turnaround plan, then they made suggestions on the turnaround plan, and then that was our response to their suggestions. And sorry, this is somewhat convoluted, but it's a very long process. And the question, Ms. Martin, that you brought up at the meeting that the team didn't have an answer for because it hasn't been conveyed to us at this point. Two things. One, do we hear back? When do we hear back on our response to their response? And the timeline for, and that's the turnaround plan, which is like the foundation, like the basement that you build your redesign plan on.
Okay.
And the redesign plan is the one that's now the timeline's been changed. It was the middle of the month. I believe you did have that correct. At one point it was the 13th or the 14th, and now it's been pushed out for 2 more weeks past that. I do have a meeting this Friday with members of the Department of Ed Urban Superintendent's meeting, so I'm sure some of these questions might be asked that came up at that meeting. Answered, sorry, although it's not on the agenda as I saw, but I will be asking. And so at this point in time, to your other concern, which is I know the committee's aware that I'm concerned as well with regards to the issue of time. In the feedback that we got from the state, from the DESE on our turnaround plan, they want us to clarify the number of minutes in our day, and if we, you know, to the extent that we were extending our day. My response to that was, well, how much time are you looking for? What is the benchmark? So that we can go back to our union and negotiate that. I did speak with the deputy commissioner, and she said that they didn't have a number of minutes, but that the DESE would work to get the other proposals that other districts were working on, so that we could see what we were supposedly, who we were competing against, what was the benchmark. That information, as Ms. Martin asked for an update on that, at this time hasn't been provided, and I believe it got more complicated perhaps when you started looking at all the different breakdowns of a day. But I did ask Paul Georges, president of UTL, to please then contact other unions and see what they had negotiated, just so that we'd have some basis again to extend our day somehow, just so that we would not have at least attempted to address that issue. That information coming back again, incomplete, I think, at best. But in some cities and towns, there was no extended day, and others there was. But when you say maybe the city that didn't extend the day, this is what I mean by incomplete, maybe they already started with a longer day than we did, so didn't feel they had to. Or maybe in a district that did extend their time more than us, maybe, which was the case in Boston, they started with less time than us. So until you see all this really in front of you, you feel like you have blinders on and you're trying to answer a riddle. So it's something that's still out there for us to determine how this is exactly going to work out. We're not sure.
Thank
So
you.
will the redesign plan as a separate entity come before the committee or the subcommittee?
Madam Superintendent?
So my understanding is the next steps with regards to the redesign piece of it is that by this Friday, I believe Jim Neary mentioned that it would be sent out to the stakeholder group. And they would see it, and we would have it on the agenda as well for the next school committee meeting. But I think perhaps, Ms. Martin, just to be more thorough than that, so everything I've just said is with regards to the regulations that we're following. But I think it would be prudent for us just to be thorough, although it does not appear through regulation that we needed a vote of the school committee for the redesign plan, which is odd to me because we needed it for the turnaround plan. Again, I will clarify on Friday. But I still think regardless if we need a vote or not, I'd be more comfortable if you were willing to call another subcommittee meeting a week or so before it's due in, so that we can just have some time with it to answer any further questions you have. But I'd like to do that after we meet with the stakeholder group, so we can just give you feedback on what the stakeholder group said about the plan as well. So this all has to happen now by the end of January, the total timeline. So if it were, if you thought it was a good idea, I would ask June to poll people for perhaps the third week of January, to set up just an overview. It's basically going to be all the components of what you've already seen, just fleshed out a little bit more.
No, I think that would be great, and I think if we could look at doing it even the beginning of that third week before, and then we'd have our meeting, our regular school committee meeting that third Wednesday.
Okay.
So then if we could do it like Monday or Tuesday,
Sure.
June can poll and see how that's appropriate. Thank you very much for that clarification. I was kind of going back and forth on which one was going in when, so I
No
appreciate
wonder.
it.
Yeah, sure.
So, that was basically the content of our meeting. As I said, I think we got a lot of interesting information. At both the subcommittee and certainly here tonight, I've felt comfortable voicing my concerns. Basically, this was a report of progress, so it's not a matter of us voting on it up or down. So I would make a motion for the committee to accept this as the full committee to accept this as a report of progress, but I would also certainly encourage my colleagues who are in attendance to share their impressions as well.
Correct. Motion by Ms. Martin, second to get it on the floor by Mr. Conway. Chair recognizes Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to try to go quick. I know it's cold and nobody wants to sit here and listen to me. I've got I have a couple of points I want to make. The first one is my appreciation to the Merkland staff, because we have a saying in my family, I imagine you've all heard it, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And you had a staff of teachers over there that had the opportunity to leave the school, knowing it was going to be under the kind of scrutiny and accountability, and the Department of Elementary, Secondary looking down their shoulder. And out of all that staff, I think only 3 chose to leave, because they are committed and caring people. And I want to also extend my appreciation to the new leadership at the school, also people who are willing to step up to the plate, knowing what was at stake. And I appreciate that effort. And I want to start with that because I've got some concerns that I want to also go to. So I wanted to get that framework out there, that I am very much aware of their commitment to the education of our children. However, in terms of the turnaround plan, I don't think it will surprise many of you here. I have concerns, particularly with the consultant part of the plan. My understanding is that this body, the school committee, has until the middle of January to express those concerns in writing to the Commissioner of Education. I'm not suggesting that we do that now. I don't want to do that. I want us to be a unified front working toward getting that $500,000 grant that we will be competing for. And part of what enables me to say I have concerns about this piece of the turnaround plan, but I am also willing to support it, is because I do see it as a work in progress. And right within the language of the plan, it talks extensively about constant use of data and benchmarks to assess how successful the plan is. And that's really where I expect that this committee will be involved. And according to the superintendent's comments, clearly she expects us to be involved as well. Not only just when you get the redesign plan, but when you start to look at those benchmarks, the Fontes and Pinnell assessments on, how are our students moving in terms of grade level reading? How are we progressing with the goals that we've set? Right. And again, my concern about the consultants, and I brought this up back at the November meeting when I first discovered that they were part of the plan, because nothing against these particular consultants. I have no doubt that they do good work, but the points I said from the beginning still remain for me. We do balanced literacy already in the district. We have the expertise. We should be building on that expertise in a way that's going to have a meaningful expansion component, as opposed to a consultant that comes in for 48 days at $1,400 a day and then leaves. And so I am concerned to see that the redesign plan is based on what the turnaround is saying, follows that out for another 3 years. This is our third year with this consultant that's really only been in 1 or 2 schools. We're not having the kind of bang. And just as an example, at the subcommittee meeting on Monday night or whatever night it was, we talked about what we did with the math initiative. And, I was newly on board when that happened, but I know the district invested $1 million up front. Chunk of it was on the curriculum. We needed a consistent math curriculum throughout the district. And then I believe in the first year, we spent about $100,000 in consultants. We had 7 people in district training all our grade level teachers. That's when we developed math resource teachers and coaches, because we were building capacity. And that really is, have not been convinced. Although I've heard, and I listened very carefully to what our principal, our new leadership at the Merkland, and his concerns about this staff has been through the ringer. They really have, and they are committed to our student success. They're there and they're doing the work, and they're comfortable with these consultants. And I hear that. But we're in a different fiscal climate than we were even in 2005, when we spent the $100,000 to roll out this whole new way of teaching math. And this balanced literacy thing is not a whole new way of teaching reading. It's a way that we've been doing and we are doing in other districts. So I'm not going to belabor that point, except to say that I'm going to be looking for those benchmarks to show that we are making the kind of progress we need to make. And when that vote comes up, because regardless of our role with the redesign plan, we have to vote on the spending of the money. And, I'm not going to sit here right now and say it's an absolute no for me with these consultants, but I am not convinced that this is the right road for us to go on. It's an expensive road, and I don't think we're getting the full bang for the buck. And then my last point, in terms of my concerns, and this really speaks more to the process and the timing of the way this rolled out in regards to these particular consultants. I was not aware until the vote came before us in November that they were part of the plan. It is in here. There's 2 paragraphs where they're mentioned, and I read the document. I tried to stay focused on every detail. It's pretty dense. It's a lot. They've, as my colleague said, they've done a huge amount of work in looking at how we're going to turn this school around. I felt that the information came to me, I was blindsided, and I did have an offline conversation with the superintendent about this, and I just want to share it with the rest of the committee, that not only because we had voted in the spring very clearly that we couldn't afford these consultants anymore, that $1,400 a day when we were laying off all the librarians, 25 paraprofessionals at the elementary level, all those things. That message was very clear in the spring. I was surprised when it came up. And then on the floor, I asked for clarification, and the superintendent told us that we were required to use consultants. And then I found out after we got the actual grant documentation regulations that, in fact, one grant did require that you not use it for salary, but the other grant would have allowed us to use it. So I felt that there was misleading information. And then the final straw for me was that they had already started in district. And so at the next meeting, which was our first December meeting, I voted to fund that contract because they had already begun the work. But I wasn't comfortable with the process and the timing, and that concern still remains with me, that going forward, to have the kind of communication, and it sounds like we are going to do that you want to keep us in the timeline. For me, the benchmarks piece is huge. But those are really concerns that still remain in terms of, using these consultants and how we go forward with getting this kind of information. And I just want to say that I am supporting the plan. I'm not suggesting that we don't do that, but I am going to be looking very closely at evidence, that we are really getting what we need from these consultants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Larrabee, then Mr. Leary.
Thank you. I also have to say that I'm appreciative of the work that the Merkland staff has put into doing the turnaround plan and the amount of time and energy they've put into this. It has certainly not been an easy process for them. I don't envy them the positions and the stress that they're under because of this. I do have to take some issue with some of the comments that have been made, especially regarding Teachers for Teachers, because this obviously has been a ongoing conversation, and I actually, I did not have that same clarity that in the spring we said to the superintendent not to use these consultants because they were too expensive. I remembered the conversation being that there was concerns that they were expensive. In fact, I went back and read the report on the use of consultants, and then I read the meeting minutes. And it does not say in there that we expressly said, do not use these consultants. What it does say is that there are concerns about the cost of them. But I wanted to get that out there because it kind of sounds like people did something that they weren't supposed to do or were expressly told not to do, and I don't feel that's the case at all. In terms of us approving a contract for people that have already started working, again, in reviewing other minutes, we've done that before. We've had people in place working, and we have approved the expenditures for their contracts after they have started. So that is not something that was unusual in this case. And again, that's something else I thought we needed to clarify. In terms of Teachers for Teachers themselves, we put a group of people to the task of coming up with a turnaround plan and a redesign plan for this level 4 school. A process that they did not take lightly, a process that they put a lot of time and energy into it. And in their opinion, in dealing with the school and the people involved, this would be a program that would be very beneficial to them. And while we are not in the financial climate that we have been in the past, I think it also needs to be underscored that this is grant money. This is not money coming out of our bottom line. That's not to say that we shouldn't scrutinize how grant money is being spent. But I don't want people to have the impression that this money is in lieu of teachers at the high school or at the schools or any place else. This is a specific process for a specific school. We have taken so much away from our teachers and cut so much from our budget that my personal opinion is if we've got teachers that are asking for this program, that are supportive of this program, have data that shows measurable results with this program, and that this is such a very small part of the entire turnaround plan and redesign plan, and the amount of attention that we have given it is really out of proportion with everything else that's going on in these plans. I mean, if you read these plans, and again, they are dense reading, but if you read the plans and you see everything that they're going through to try to bring us where we need to be, again, not to minimize the cost or anything else, but this is a very small part of the plan that we're getting hung up on, and we really need to focus on the bigger picture. when we're looking at trying to support the school and trying to support the teachers, I think it's important that we listen to them and we hear them and we support them. The other comment that I wanted to make is really about the timing of this. This is a lot of work that's being done in a short amount of time. You know, we had a meeting that I was able to attend, and it was a 2.5-hour meeting. And so I thank the team and the superintendent and Mr. Neary and the committee members for putting the time and energy on a Monday night to it. But, you know, this is, to me, showing the level of their dedication to the process, is that they are willing to come out. They're willing to say, this is what we're looking to do. This is what we want to do. And I just think we need to be careful not to get hung up on a small part of the entire process. It's a huge process. It is an ongoing process. We've got 3 years going forward for this, and we need to keep an eye on that. And one of Ms. Martin's concerns about extending the day and how much in terms of comparison to other schools, we don't have that information. We've tried to get that information. I think for our purposes, we really need to focus on, yes, we said an extra 15 minutes, but how are we getting the biggest bang for our time there? And the fact that the Merkland team has redone their schedule to cut down on transition time, which may not sound like a lot, but when you think about kids walking into rooms, sitting down, getting settled, starting the lesson, and then, you know, the uproar and everything else, I think that's a huge bonus for them. The redirecting so that the teachers have the time to free it up at recess is huge to me. I think rather than sit there and worry about what everybody else is doing, I think we need to really focus on the fact that we've got a good plan here. I think it's a very good plan. I think it shows that there was a lot of time and energy going through, and you know, if it comes down the pike that the state wanted us to say an hour more, well, shame on the state, because they haven't told us that kind of information. But, you know, if we're going to really talk about changing the school culture, and this won't make me popular with any student at all, I really think we should be looking more at extending the school year. I mean, it's a long day as it is. To try to add an hour, hour and a half on it, to me, would be harsh. But, boy, if we could reconfigure the year and add more days to the year, I think that would be much more beneficial to our students. I would love to see us try to make some kind of progress on that, but I imagine that that's more of a legislative issue that we would need to talk to our legislative body. But you know, if we're really going to talk about changing the culture of the school and everything else, you know, cutting down on a 10-week span where kids lose most of the knowledge that they had, and we spend a big chunk of the fall recouping that, that to me would be a better way to extend time. So thank you for letting me go on.
Thank you. Mr. Leary, then Ms. Martin.
Thank you. Just one of the bullet points here had the extended hours for summer school, for student hours. And if we could make it mandatory, that would probably meet right to my committee colleagues' goal, which I think is probably right on target. Increasing time during the day probably is not as meaningful as duration throughout the year. Be that as it may, I want to thank the entire subcommittee and the administration, and especially the principal, Jason DiCarlo, and his staff at the Merkland. I met with Jason prior to the holidays when he took time out to meet with me and walk me around and really give me his feedback in terms of what was important to him and what were his hopes of reaching these benchmarks that everybody was trying to achieve. And I think, and I want to, you know, this guy is a good guy. We got to keep people like him in our system. As someone, we have a lot of people, we have a lot of good principals out there, and he's one of them. What Mr. Carlo did point out is that, you know, he thinks this plan will achieve the benchmarks. And as my colleagues have already stated, that's the proof in the pudding. I think Ms. Doherty said it bluntly. I'm going to wait to see if we hit these benchmarks or not. If we don't hit the benchmarks, then that's where the issue is. As far as the work involved, a tremendous amount of work. The folks in here have done an excellent job working hard. Now the question is, again, are they going to meet the goals that they're held accountable to? As far as the Department of Education, I think I said it at the last meeting, it is, pick an adjective, bizarre, ridiculous. I don't know why we're competing for money. Nobody knows what they're competing for. The Education Department of Education doesn't really give a heck of a lot of feedback in that area. And there's enough said about that. I just think it's just, perverse. How's that adjective in terms of we're all competing for money? So if 3 of these districts fail after putting good plans together and don't get the money, what does that mean for those schools? They continue to fail? Just a rhetorical question, I guess. But regarding the consultant issue, I'm a consultant. I think consultants' experience is highly valuable, often more valuable than certain aspects of what some of the staff can deliver. I think the ultimate point there is, though, we're only utilizing them in 2 or 3 elementary schools. We have all these other schools that we need to have the same services implemented, or ensuring that we have those services implemented. I read through the report, and I think the union president, Paul Georges, had something, train the trainer. Obviously, with copyright issues, et cetera, that might be a problem of utilizing the consultants in that fashion. But being with technology, we should be looking to utilize training our folks online with just a motion we just passed. I know that's oversimplifying what everybody's been talking about for the past year regarding consultants and the cost of consultants. Even if we hired 1 staff member, we're not going to be able to reach the entire school population. Just all our schools. We need to find new and creative ways of reaching our staff with the information so they can go out there and deliver the services to the students. We're going to have budget cuts. We're going to have massive budget cuts. We still have to be student-driven, which is going to be painful because we're going to lay off human beings. But we need to look for new ways of reaching folks with professional development. So train the trainer might be like a big, what does that really mean? I think we start to really get moving with these areas and implementing it. Again, I'll just end by saying I want to thank everybody for the hard work. Very complicated. As long as we hit our benchmarks, then I think we're okay. If we don't hit them, then I think that's when we have to take a look at whether or not 15 minutes additional time during the day was appropriate, or all the development that we were focused on was of high value. One more thing, I didn't see it in the report, and anybody could someone could comment regarding the monies we're spending to actually teach parents how to read in this district. I heard a little bit about it anecdotally on the periphery, but a lot of the reasons why our students are in trouble is because their parents don't have the skill sets to help teach their kids at home. And I know we're setting aside a certain amount of these monies to actually have an adult ed for some of the parents so they can read, so they can actually read to their kids. I don't know if anybody could comment on that briefly. I know it kind of gets missed. That point doesn't get hit upon a lot because there's a lot of important work that's at a higher level. But I think we're doing some good stuff at the Merkland. It's just a question whether or not it reaches the benchmarks that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Martin.
Thank you very much. Just a couple quick responses, because I know that we, as I said, I think earlier in my report, we do tend to go round and round on this. I just want to be clear on a couple points. One is grant money. Grant money in this particular case, in every case, but in this particular case, has been granted to this school because of its profound need. It is not extra money or free money or fund money. What it is that it has been directed at a school that is in desperate need of additional supports and doesn't require less attention from us, it requires more. It doesn't have less of a responsibility attached to it because it's grant money directed at a specific school. It has more responsibility. Every dollar that you are spending from a grant has specific direction attached to it, and it is our fiduciary responsibility to ensure that we make those decisions with very careful and close review. The idea of discounting grant money in some way as something less than or different than, it's not a true understanding of what grant money is meant to do in this environment. In terms of the smallness of this issue, in some ways I can't help but agree. The current contract that these individuals are being paid from was, correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Superintendent, $140,000 for this current year.
That was the total budget for the
So
bridge for this year.
50%. That's not small. 50% of the money that was allocated to help this desperately drowning school was spent for this particular purchase. We can debate all day long if it was worth it, and, and that's great. Ultimately, the decisions we have to make are based on if it was the best way to spend this money, the most effective way, the biggest bang that we could possibly get for students who are in desperate need of this support from their teachers and from the district that's responsible for them. The final thing I want to ask is that it was, I think, kind of casually mentioned that this is a common practice in the Lowell Public Schools, that we have people working that we don't have signed contracts with. If that is the case, I'd like a list of those immediately if possible, or moving forward, because it's illegal. It's not the appropriate way to do business. People cannot be expecting to be paid from a committee if they do not have a signed contract. They do not get a signed contract from any other entity but this committee. So anything over $5,000 that's being instituted without our approval is not being done appropriately. So that is, as I said, it was kind of casually mentioned, that's a huge issue. So I don't know where the information came from, but I'd like to be privy to it as well. If one member is, it would be appropriate for us all to be aware of it. And that's a big issue. So as soon as we can get that information, again, if not, maybe it's just something that you're aware of that I'm not, or if we need to follow up with it, that would be appropriate.
Ms. Doherty, then Ms. Larrabee.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just have one additional question, since you're throwing out a question, and that it might not be something that you know off the top of your head again, so when you could get it to us. How many people do we have currently employed with us who are on grants? Just a ballpark number, do we know that? I mean, I know in the past it was more, we've lost a lot of grant money, but could you, through you to Mr. Lang, if there is like a general idea, how many people are on grants? Thank you.
Real ballpark, we have about 1,950 employees. I'm going to estimate about 300 are probably grant employees. I mean, it's a breakdown I can get for you in the morning, but
Okay.
top of my head, 1,950 are total, maybe 300 are on grants.
So even given the cuts we've seen in grant money over the last few years, the federal money's gone down, there's been a lot of cuts in grant, we're still employing over 300 people on these grants. I mean, the grants are very much a part of something we depend on in terms of being able to pull together our programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Larrabee.
Just to respond to Committeewoman Martin's question, this isn't information that I received from anyone other than looking at our minutes. And the two that come to mind specifically would be the principals that we signed or approved the money for, Lee and Manilopoulos. So that isn't information that anybody gave me. I was flipping through previous minutes to see what our practice had been, and those are the two that stood out to me most recently. That's not to say that that's a long-standing, but I'm saying in researching our conversation and looking at what we've done, that's what I found.
Thank you.
So just to be clear, though, those were two situations that were specifically discussed on this floor as being unique, and that we had a very clear discussion that it was because the retirement board wouldn't allow us to enter into those contracts until they had given us the approval. So I mean, those are unique situations that were specifically, described to us that way.
Correct, those were unique, but we had also, my point was that we had discussed Teachers for Teachers as a part of this process, the turnaround plan, and using them within the school because it had been a program that was in place and wanted to be continued. That was where I was going with that, is that we had already had conversations about teachers specifically. So it was not a surprise to me that they were on there. So I'm not clear why it was a surprise for other people, but.
Well, I think it was a surprise for me. I will be quite frank. It was absolutely a surprise for me. It was a surprise for me at the conclusion, as Ms. Doherty has mentioned during our spring conversations, about how the expense that was associated with this investment, and I think that. Moving forward, it was voiced fairly clearly at that time frame that concerns about price were very high. I think that then September came, and for whatever reasons, these people, this group began their work again, and it was 3 months before a contract came to us. I think a careful review of the minutes will show that in every other case, they were approved beforehand, like every other contractor that we use. The idea of waiting for someone to be, doing this work with no expectation of payment for 3 months has not happened in the past. So I think that was, a purposeful move. And I think that the minutes, serve a very real purpose. I am certainly been inspired now to go back and get the tapes from the public library, and I'll be watching those so that we can make those comparisons, because I have a very strong memory of, certainly of my own clearly stressed concerns about this. I don't think I left any question as to, as an individual member of this committee, my feelings on this topic, and I certainly do not recall being alone in that. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'm giving the committee a lot of latitude here, but Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just one quick point. I want to clarify something from my colleague. We had extensive subcommittee meetings that perhaps if my colleague to the left was only looking at the minutes of our formal meeting, we did not go into the detail. I mean, as you know, we had a subcommittee meeting the other night, 2.5 hours, that generally the subcommittee discussions will be more extensive than what we say on the floor in reporting out the minutes or even expressing our concerns. And I think that you and I were both at that subcommittee meeting. We are on the curriculum subcommittee, as was, I believe, Mr. Leary was at that meeting. So perhaps you weren't there. I don't recall that piece. But certainly if it happened in subcommittee and Ms. Larrabee was only privy to the formal minutes of the actual meeting, that level of detail wouldn't have been there. So it's understandable that she would not have this sense of clarity that those of us who were at the subcommittee do. I apologize. Thank you for letting me.
I do appreciate that, Ms. Doherty, and that could well be the case that it was discussed at a subcommittee. The point I've been trying to make is that as a body, this school committee did not make a vote to say, do not use these consultants. They expressed concerns about the cost, but there's not a vote saying, do not use these consultants. And again, they're consultants with measurable results that have been a part of the progress. And as Mr. Leary said, we get to the point where they're not making the benchmarks, then that answers the question right there. We're not using them.
There was a vote not to use them in the spring. That was the vote.
As a full body?
Yes.
I didn't find that record.
Madam Superintendent.
I just need to clarify that the administration is not aware of a vote, and if in fact there was a vote not to use these consultants, that would obviously be a big problem for me and a huge oversight. So we are not aware, and we can definitely look into a vote, but in fact that is the case, that was missed by this administration. Obviously, that's a big problem, and I would apologize for that. Another point, Ms. Doherty, that you brought up earlier that I would like to address, and again, apologize to you publicly since it was brought up in our conversation, just with regards to your concerns over me citing on the permission to enter form. There were 2 different grants that were going to pay for the bridge funding, and I did reference that evening the new grant that was for consultants for improving our schools, that was something new that the department had. And I apologize for any misunderstanding or that you felt in any way that my comments were misleading. As I said to you personally, I felt badly about that's how you felt. That would never be my intent, and that I was just trying to clarify that it was a new grant, and specifically that it was to be used for consultants, and the other grant made no mention of that. And I just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Mr. Leary.
I just got a quick, to you, Mayor, to the superintendent. The consultant, just a question, I hope I phrase it correctly. We were giving a vote on the consultants, I think, was it in November or December? I can't remember when we had the vote. Maybe it was early November. were they already authorized to work and from my understanding is we were voting on the contract for the work that had already occurred. Was it not supposed to come forward in August prior to them beginning work?
Madam Superintendent.
Thank you. To Ms. Martin's point, it's best practice that the consultant should have their bills in before they do the work, or the contract before, to have a vote of the committee. They do run the risk, if the committee votes know that it's their legal right, that they won't be paid. This point has been made clear.
Any further discussion? There is a motion on the floor to accept the report as a report of progress. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, the vote. Thank you. The next item is the Technology Subcommittee report of the meeting just held today at 6 o'clock. Mr. Leahy.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight at 6 o'clock, we had the Technology Subcommittee meeting. Present with myself, Mr. Leary, Ms. Doherty, Dr. Wendy Jack, Superintendent, and Mr. Lang, Ms. Larraba, and Mr. Conway. And Ms. Conway came in towards the end. Basically, we had 6, we had about 8 agenda items, and we weren't able to get to all of them. First of all, on the first motion we addressed was an update on the Malloy School, just to make sure that it was brought to our attention that they may or may not been able to access the Lowell High website. That was addressed, and as far as we know, anybody at the Malloy School can address the Lowell High website and get the information that they need. So hopefully that's cleared up. The second agenda item was a motion from Mr. Leary and myself, and another one from Mr. Leary about virtual classroom technology, the status at Lowell High. Dr. Jack discussed that with us. She gave us a brief outline about what we had at the high school and what we lost over the years for budget cuts. But presently, we do have a couple of virtual classes going on with UMass Lowell, and we do offer maybe 1 or 2 online classes right now. So at the present, we do use a couple of science labs, I guess, for the biology classes with Lowell for the virtual classrooms, and we're still looking ahead to see what we can offer for next year and the best way to provide these services for the students. Another motion that we got to was a motion made by Mr. Leary about technology purchases. We had some money that came in from Microsoft suit on the 208-209 school budget. So we got a report on that, on how the money was spent and what purchases were made. And then one other item that we had brought up was the, I guess, parent access to X2, and that was a motion that was brought up by Mr. Leary and myself, requesting that the superintendent provide the technology subcommittee and the school committee with a plan to allow parent access to children's records, weekly homework assignments, grade curriculum information. So we had a brief discussion on that. Basically, with the budget cuts and the situation that we're in, we still need to discuss this, and we still need to really assess our equipment at the schools, how to link up websites, from school to school, and how to get parent information, how to get parent and student access to X2. So it's still an ongoing discussion. We had a lot on the agenda and we didn't have enough time. So if I missed anything, I apologize. I don't know if my colleague wants to add a few things.
Mr. Leary?
Thank you, Mayor. I think, first of all, I want to thank everybody for having the technology subcommittee meeting. We had 10 motions that have been outstanding on it. I think all of them are very meaningful motions. Not because most of them are mine, but we'll take it anyway. The other ones are okay, too. I think the key here is that technology has to go forward. If we have to go outside and raise money privately to get it done, we need to get it done. It's time and time again, you have parents that come up to you and really they're exasperated. Why aren't we using the technology that we have, and why aren't we becoming more updated? Travels around the schools, be it the Pawtucketville I was at prior to the holidays, the Merkland, as I said earlier, the Bailey, some other elementary schools that I went into just to get a basic update on technology. They're all a hodgepodge. Some have everything they need. Others are begging for more. Others are fighting over whiteboards or Elmos or Emos or whatever the terminology is these days. That's, in a word, is pathetic, and there's no excuse. What I'm happy about this meeting is that the subcommittee asked the assistant superintendent to do an updated survey. What do we have in each particular building? What do you need? As soon as we know what you need, then we'll go out. If we can't do the budget through the regular funds or through grants, existing grants, then we'll go out to the community and get the folks who can raise money. We can't do it legally to get these expenses. We need to do it. We must do it. There's no excuse. So I think that initiative should be done before the end of the first quarter. So when we begin talks about what we need, we'll have methods of getting that done. It must get done. The X2 information for students, I want to thank publicly the headmaster and his staff and Dr. Jack for actually putting a pilot program together as far as getting use of X2 and other technology so parents can find out what their students' information is, grades, whether they were in attendance, etc. I want to thank the public school teachers at the high school who have taken the initiative on their own for having their own websites and other data to communicate with parents in addition to email. However, we need to get that up and running for the entire high school and then have it up and running for the entire middle school and elementary schools. I know the Sullivan has an excellent website, which we finally have linked up to the main website, the Lowell Public School website. I want to thank the staff at the Sullivan for taking the initiative and keeping that running in the middle of budget cuts. Technology and information to the parents and to our customers has to take place as a top priority. If we don't have the money in the budget, we need to know what the needs are so we can go out and get the money from outside sources, and then ensuring that we have the professional development for our folks so they can utilize the technology. These motions have gone by, for some of them, for a couple of years, and I understand the difficulty. I wasn't going to be pushing really hard because I know we're cutting things in a desperate attempt just to survive, but we can no longer just survive. Technology has to be one of the most important elements of our portfolio as we go out to the public saying our schools are second to none in the greater Lowell area. Without this technology, we can't say that. So I think the initial technology meeting, one of which Mr. Leahy stated we'll have many going forward, is important. And I do thank the staff for taking the time. And there's a lot more here to cover that we can get into it in more detail. But I think first, initially, getting the surveys of what our schools need, and then getting that technology to them, and then the professional development so they can utilize that technology must be a top priority. And I think now that the message is across that is important, I think we will be able to achieve that because we do have the people in place to get it done. Thank you.
Ms. Larraba, then Ms. Doherty.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Mr. Leary's comment about the Sullivan School website, I just wanted to put a name to it and acknowledge Mr. Gene Verschoor. My son went to the Sullivan Middle School, and Mr. Verschoor has, for several years, put a lot of time and energy into developing the website and keeping it updated and working with the teachers to make sure that their information gets up in a timely manner. So I did want to just acknowledge Mr. Verschoor's work on that.
Thank you. Ms. Doherty.
I'd like to just add to the whole importance of using technology and making better use of technology. One of the other areas that I know my colleague mentioned, we discussed during the subcommittee, was exploring more online class opportunities for our students, particularly as we have had to make several cuts over the last few years, and we're still looking at, facing budget deficits, where some of our lower enrolled courses are higher level language courses, more specific electives, where we don't have the student enrollment to justify a full-time teacher. What we've really been facing is eliminating those opportunities for our students. So Dr. Jack has been, I have to say she willingly stepped forward to take on the task of trying to look at what's out there in terms of other options for us, particularly for those kinds of courses. The courses we can no longer afford because we can't have a class with 5 students. We can't run those classes at the high school anymore. And how can technology provide us an answer, another option for our students? And I just wanted to say that is another reason why we definitely need to see technology as a solution for going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Leahy, second by Mr. Leary, that we accept the Technology Subcommittee report as a report of progress. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Thank you. Under the reports of the superintendent, the first one is the personnel report. Madam Superintendent?
Thank you, Your Honor. The personnel report, January 5th, 2011, as presented. Are there any questions?
Do we have any questions? Motion to approve by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Larrabee. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Do we need a roll call on that, Madam Secretary?
No, I don't believe so.
No, okay. And the next report, list of eligible teachers, Madam Superintendent?
List of eligible teachers report dated as of January 5th, 2011. Any questions, Your Honor?
Any questions? Motion by Mr. Doherty, second by Mr. Conway to accept the report as presented. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Thank you. Under new business, this evening, we do have acceptance of gift to Lowell High School. Madam Superintendent?
Thank you, Your Honor. Attached, please find a communication from Headmaster Edwards Merrick indicating that the Friends of Lowell High School girls and boys swim and dive teams have offered to donate a records board to the swim program pool area. If the committee so wishes to accept this generous and kind donation, I need a vote, and the wording of the vote would be to accept the offer to gift of a records board from the Friends of Lowell High School swim and dive teams for the purpose of donating it to the swim and dive programs at Lowell High School. We thank them for the generosity.
Motion to approve by Mr. Conway, second by Ms. Doherty. Ms. Doherty.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just very quickly, I wanted to thank the superintendent for her quick turnaround on this. To fully disclose, I'm a parent of 2 swimming students at Lowell High School, and I want to officially thank the parents of the girls and boys swim programs for coming forward with this donation. I think that our swim teams have been making incredible progress, and we should be able to proudly display our record-breaking student swimmers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Doherty? Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Under convention and conference requests, we have 3 this evening. Motion by Mr. Conway, second by Ms. Larrabee. Do we take them together?
Together.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Any questions, discussion? Motion to approve by Ms. Martin, seconded by Ms. Larrabee. Roll call.
Ms. Doherty?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee? Mr. Leahy?
Yes.
Mr. Leary?
Yes.
Ms. Martin?
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo?
Yes.
Mr. Conway?
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Thank you. Under communications, again, Lowell Telecommunications, Channel 10, broadcast of...
Larrabee has a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Larrabee.
It's okay. Asking for a point of personal privilege to report out on a site visit.
But you have to do it after all this.
I thought I had to do it under communications, my apologies.
No, after everything's voted on.
Okay.
Okay?
Sorry.
Yes, yeah.
I'll learn eventually.
Okay.
Lowell Telecommunications Channel 10, live on the first and third Wednesdays of the month, Thursday at 6 p.m., Saturday, Sunday, 2 p.m., Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Accept that communication by Ms. Martin, second by Mr. Leary. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed to vote. The next item under professional personnel, it's my understanding we'd like to delay this until our next meeting. Motion to delay by Ms. Starity, seconded by Mr. Leary. All those in favor of a 2-week delay signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. Next item under civil service. Lowell SEIU Local 888 Clerical Union requests to donate 23 days to Anita Verdi, a special education clerk in the special education department. Motion to approve by Mr. Conway, seconded by Ms. Martin. Roll call.
Ms. Doherty.
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee. Yes. Mr. Leahy.
Yes.
Mr. Leary.
Yes.
Ms. Martin. Yes. Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Mr. Conway.
Yes.
7 yeas, approved.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Ms. Larrabee for a point of personal privilege. Ms. Larrabee.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. This morning, I had the opportunity to attend the monthly leadership program that's held at the Rogers School with all the principals, and I thank all of them for allowing me to listen in on the program today. They were talking about the overview of the Common Core standards and had a representative from DESE doing the presentation, and I just have to say that it was a very informative meeting, certainly eye-opening in terms of what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So I just wanted to report out that was time well spent on my part. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Larrabee, for that update. Anything else to come before motion to adjourn by Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Martin. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Is it time? You probably can see it better than I can. What is it?